Hey guys, it's Thomas from Chrono24 in New York City, and today we are doing some watch hunting with a special guest. Now, before we introduce him, let me remind you we are doing a $10,000 giveaway. If you want to find out how to win some money, check out the link in the description below. Now, let's introduce our guest. Today we have none other than Robert Jan Brewer. Robert Jan is the founder of Fratello Magazine. He is Mr. Speedy Tuesday. If you like Omega watches, if you like Speedmasters, you have definitely heard of him. Robert Jan, thanks for being on today, and say a few words to our audience if you don't mind.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for this introduction. Thanks for having me here. I'm in The Hague, in the Netherlands. I am indeed the founder of Fratello Magazine, or FratelloWatches.com. I founded it in 2004. And I turned it basically from a blog into an online watch magazine together with quite a bit of colleagues these days. We started with a few extra guys like Bert, who's doing video and photography. And today we have approximately 15 people on board of Fratello. So we publish articles on watches every single day.
Very good, very good. And I know our viewers are dying to see. Can you give us a little wrist check about what you're wearing today?
Yeah, so today I'm wearing a Speedmaster Professional. It's the Silver Snoopy Award from 2015 with the white dial, and it has this enamel case back with the silver lapel pin of Snoopy on there. Not sure if you can see it, but yeah, it's a great watch, and I collect Speedmasters. Perhaps some of you know. That's why I also coined Speedy Tuesday in the past. And yeah, this Snoopy came on my path in 2015, and I ordered it straight away. And I tried to collect number 13s. So this is number 13, which is extra nice because the Snoopy commemorates Apollo 13. And so to have a number 13 watch for Apollo 13, I think is very cool. And during one of our Speedy Tuesday get-togethers that we organize, well, not now because of COVID, but in the past and hopefully in the future again, we did a little get-together in Frankfurt, Germany, and we invited Apollo astronaut Charlie Duke. He was the Apollo astronaut from the mission number 16, but he was also in the backup crew for Apollo 13. And I asked him to engrave my watch. So this watch is engraved with his name on the side of the case. So I gave him a diamond pen, and then he could write his name on the case side. So some people think that was nuts, but I kind of like it. It gives a nice memory and to that meeting, and also meeting Charlie Duke. And to me, that's more important than the value of the watch, so to speak.
Wow. RJ, I was expecting you to just say Omega Speedmaster and then we would move on to the video, but that was a whole story. That was really, really cool. That is very unique. I'm glad that you out of all your Speedmasters in your collection, you have even that extra memory on top of that. Is super, super cool as a fellow watch nerd.
Yeah, I think so too. And what are you wearing?
Today I am wearing the Benris Type 1 reissue that came out in 2020.
Okay. Very modern.
Very modern, yes. So yeah, the originals are around 14,000 right now. So I thought I would stick with the reissue for a lot less than that.
Yeah, sometimes that's the best thing to do.
Yes. So I'm a vintage watch guy mostly, but it's nice to have one that I can actually take out if it's raining. So it's a nice change of pace for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into hunt number 1. All right, RJ, we know you are a huge Omega fan, so we're going to start with 3 Omegas specifically. When you're ready, I want you to choose an entry-level Omega,
yep,
a special edition Speedmaster, and an Omega that you feel has been overlooked by the watch community. For this, there's no time limit, there's not even a budget. I just want you, with all your knowledge, to pick out 3 favorites on those. Whenever you're ready, take it away.
I will start with the entry-level Omega. I think that's a good idea. I think an entry-level Omega is interesting because they do start at a few $100. But you can also say an entry-level Omega is a certain type of watch, like a DeVille Prestige, for example, or a non-complicated watch. But I would say entry level for me has a little bit to do with price, and I don't want to go all the way down. But for me, I think if you want to start with Omega and perhaps you want to start with something nice or vintage, my best selection would be the Constellation. A lot of people know me as a Speedmaster collector, but I also collect Constellations. So I have Constellations from the very first years in the 50s up till more recent models, and I really enjoy them. I think a vintage Constellation is a very good start for any kind of watch collection. So I will say I want to have something automatic, of course, but all Constellations are automatic or quartz, as you will see. So I will do automatic, and I will say, okay, let's get an early one from 50 to 69. Let me see if we do the 14900, then we will see some Constellations, and this, for example, would be a very interesting one. So it's a pipe pen, because the dial is like a turned upside down pipe pen. Often you see them also on these bed of rice bracelets, like you see here. I will click it. So you see here, but it's not. These watches were not delivered like that. You can opt for the bracelet at the retailer in the past, but all these Constellations came on leather straps. Only if someone would want to have a watch like this, a bracelet like this, they could order it at the retailer and the retailer would just add it. But it's not a specific Constellation or Seamaster bracelet whatsoever. But this is a very nice example as well. And as you see, the price is quite decent, almost $2,500. In the past, you could get these watches for below 1,000, but those days are long gone. And I think for a good model, you will definitely pay some money. So the very first Constellations had these bumper movements, always automatic. Of course, so the first were bumper movements, and then in 54 or 55 they went through the automatic movements with the full rotor. This is actually quite nice one, I have to say. It comes with a box that might be a little bit older than the date of the watch, 1962, but yeah, looks good.
Yeah, very handsome. Yeah, you get a little bit of history. Yeah. Even with the bumper movement, you get a special slice of watch history, I would say. And, for an entry level, a lot of people would say, anything under 5,000 is entry level. And so we're doing not even half of that here. So well done.
Yeah, and I think you're buying into a classic with these dogleg lugs, as you can see here, and the pipe pen dial, dolphin hands. And some of these dials, like this one, they have onyx in the hour markers. It's a handsome piece, and the movements of that, they were copper colored. It was this copper finish, and this is a movement of 5.1 automatic movement. So all these movements are chronometer certified because Constellation was the flagship model of Omega at the time. And yeah, these watches, they needed to be precise. Omega did attended a lot of contests for chronometer ratings and so on. So it was really their flagship model, basically. So this one looks nice. I'm not a watchmaker, so it's very difficult to judge the movement, but I don't see rust. I don't see any awful damages. Dial looks good. The crown, as you can see, has this 8-sided shape, which is original to this model. And yeah, looks beautiful. There's a cross on the dial, as you can see as well. And yeah, it adds up, it ticks a lot of boxes, this watch. So I would say, it's a bit quick perhaps, I would say this is my pick. And look, there are not that many, as you can see. So I think, yeah.
Very strong pick to start. I love the lugs, I love the patina on the dial, the onyx, the hour markers is a super nice touch. Like you said, the movement looks to be in good quality, and I think it should be fairly easy to repair as well, which is always a good thing to keep in mind for a vintage piece.
Beautiful watch. I think price is very decent, and I would keep it on a leather strap, not this leather strap, but I think it looks nicer on a leather strap than with a bracelet, but that's of course a personal taste. So that was my entry-level Omega.
Yep, so next up we can either do limited edition Speedmaster or an overlooked Omega. Which one would you like to go for, sir?
Now that we are here anyway, I would go for an overlooked Omega, to be honest. It's a constellation, but it's on the other hand it's not. It's a Globemaster. Omega used the Globemaster in the 50s as well, because that's where the name comes from. The Constellation was exported to the US, but in the US at first they couldn't use the name they couldn't use the name Constellation because of the airplane. So they needed to rebrand it. So for the first few years it was called the Globemaster until everything was settled, and then it was Constellation again. So in 2015, the same year as the Silver Snoopy Award that I'm wearing, it was actually at the event where they introduced the Globemaster in Switzerland. They also showed the Snoopy, and there they introduced the Globemaster. They gave a little bit of history and a bit of context about the name, and from that moment I really love this watch. I love old Constellations. It's a family thing for me. My grandparents had Constellations and my parents, and this Globemaster is a collection of watches that I truly like. I have one. I have the one in full Sedna gold, and I truly enjoy wearing it. You can see it here. This one is the one I have in my personal collection. Beautiful watch in Sedna gold. I think Sedna gold was introduced in 2012, I think, also on a Constellation for the 50th anniversary. It's a special alloy. It keeps the red of the red gold a bit longer. So normally if you have white gold or rose gold or red gold, it tends to turn yellow again after years of wearing. It's just the way the material wears. And Rolex has Averroes. Omega has Sedna gold and Canopus gold. It contains, I think, a bit more palladium to keep the colors correct, basically, over the years. So, Sedna gold. This watch also has a pipe dial, just like the old Constellation. And the Globemaster, the new one since 2015, was the first watch to receive the Master Chronometer certification by Metas. So Omega introduced this standard in 2014 and really start implementing it with this Globemaster model in 2015. So yeah, beautiful movements, caliber 18900 and 18901 for the gold models. But I'm not picking a gold model for today because it needs to be a little bit sane, I guess. I would love to do, because every Constellation, well, not the one that we selected, the Pipan, but normally I would say it should have a touch of gold. And so I will say the case needs to be gold steel.
Are we going two-tone here?
And yeah, I love two-tone on the Constellation. But not with the bracelet. The bracelet is a bit too much. I also don't like the looks of this bracelet too much. It's also a relatively sharp bracelet, I noticed. So I really love these gold steel models. Let me find one. Which one do I like best? I have to say I like the combination of
yeah, you have a few dial color choices here as well.
Yeah, I would say I really like this. It's a bit of a stock picture. Do we have something that shows the watch how it is? Oh, perhaps I can sort on price because I want to have it on the leather strap. Here is a nice one from 2018 for under $7,000. I would pick this one. So it has a blue dial, and I think blue and rose gold or Sedna gold is really a nice combination. And with the leather strap, it makes the case pop. Some people say, well, the fluted bezel looks a bit too Datejust-ish for us, but Omega has been using it for decades as well. Also in the Constellation, designed by Genta, another one from 69 onwards. I think it just looks good, and the case shape is quite different from the other brand, from Rolex, and it's 39 millimeters, so very wearable. And here you see the movement, and it has the observatory with the 8 stars, the constellation stars. Those 8 stars, I think they represent the prizes that they won with the chronometer contests. And it comes with a large wooden box, folding clasp is there, and yeah, this would be my overlook model, because I think a lot of people missed this constellation, because at the time in 2015, as you remember, there was the Silver Snoopy Award, but there was also Spectre, the James Bond movie. So this Globemaster was a bit in the shadow of those kind of events, so I feel that Omega didn't push hard enough to get this watch out. And yeah, I really like it. I think it's one of the few modern constellations that are very wearable for today's men, and looks beautiful. So I will add this to my notepad.
Yeah, add it on there. I think 39 millimeters is a very wearable size. It's gotten very popular, especially with the rise of the Black Bay 58, for example. And I like that you chose a two-tone example. I think in general, that category is very overlooked. It's certainly hard for a lot of people to get into. But very well done on choosing an overlooked model with a lot of really good history and an overlooked metal combination as well.
Yeah, so that would be my pick. Then we have one last Omega, which is the special edition Speedmaster.
Where
as you know, on Tuesday it's Speedy Tuesday, and we are also recording at the time of the Olympics.
Yes.
And Omega did a number of Olympic specials, and in 2018 they introduced a set of 5 watches as a set, but also separate. It's the Tokyo 2020 limited edition Speedmaster. And when I first saw these watches, I was amazed and surprised, because it was only for the Japanese market, and that doesn't fly these days anymore. I think with internet, the world has become so transparent that it's very difficult to target watches for a specific region or country and only make them available to that region or country. But that's what Omega did. So it's only for Japan market. But meanwhile, we are 3 years down the road. The Olympics are finally taking place, and you will find these watches also offered on Chrono 24. As part of the Speedmaster Professional Collection, it still has the former movement, the 1861, which has been replaced this year with the 3861. So I have to narrow down my search a bit, and I will do Tokyo 2020. And here we go.
And I'm interested to see which color catches your eye, because we do have some options here.
We have options. So we have 5 options basically. There's one with, and all these, there are 5 watches, and these 5 watches represent the Olympic rings. So you have one with a red bezel for the red ring, one with a blue bezel for the blue ring, a green one for the green ring, and one in gold steel with a black bezel for the yellow ring, because the tachymeter bezel itself is made out of gold. Did I miss one? Green, blue. Yeah, and there's a green one. Let me see. I have to narrow it down a little bit more, I think. Let me put Speedmaster in front of it. Oh, Tokyo 2020. So there's the red one. I have the red one myself. We nicknamed it Rising Sun. I see one offered here, also using the nickname Rising Sun. We wrote about it in 2018. A couple of our team members, we were able to source a few via a friend in Japan. And our editor Michael Stockton wrote about this watch and why he bought it, and he nicknamed it Rising Sun, and it was actually picked up quite well. So I would say this is very interesting because 3 out of 5 these watches are based on Speedmaster Professionals that were in the collection before. So we see the blue one with the white subdials. It's based on the Gemini 4 model from 2005 that also had this setup. The black one with the gold rims was based on Apollo 15 for the 35th anniversary, I think. And then there is the black and white, the reverse panda, which is based on the Apollo 11 35th anniversary, or the Mitsukushi from a year before in 2003. So for me, those watches immediately were off the table because they are more or less re-editions of limited editions. And for me, that doesn't fly. Although they are very beautiful watches, and if you can't get those other originals, I think this is a really good option. Leaving the one with the red bezel that I bought myself, and one with a green bezel that has a little bit of green in there. And I have to say, so I bought the Tokyo 2020 Rising Sun because I love the red and I love this this gray dial that looks a bit like platina from the Yachtmaster. But in the end, if I would buy one today, perhaps I would go for this green bezel one with the rose gold pushers and crown, because it just looks so different from any of the other Speedmasters, together with the Rising Sun, I have to say. So those two watches are quite different from what has been out there in the Moonwatch collection. So it's either this one or the Rising Sun, and I think I will go, do something out of the box and go for the, you see perhaps a little bit better. I will go for this one. Green bezel, quite awkward, and rose gold elements and a grey dial. What do you say?
It's interesting to see the two-tone on the pushers as well. I mean, that makes two two-tone watches so far, but this is a special treatment there. I liked that you kept it topical by going for the Olympics and keeping it topical by choosing a green watch, which, as you know, we have a few of those that came out recently. And it is funny to see the extra layer of history, and that this is a watch for the 2020 Olympics that are happening in 2021. Yeah. So I think as we look back 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, or 20 years down the road, it'll be funny to see a watch for the 2020/2021 Olympics. And I do like that you chose as well the different models that are particularly unique to this set, as opposed to the ones that were inspired by previous Speedmasters.
Yeah, I agree. So very different, and I don't have anything like this in my collection of Speedmasters, and it would be something I could add. Here's the entire set, but one, it's reserved, and second, it's 50K. So, but here are all 5 on a row. I will go with the green one. So those are my picks for the first hunt.
Well done, well done. Great, so we covered everything. We covered an entry-level Omega, a special edition Speedmaster, and even your overlooked piece as well. It's great to have your commentary and the history there. There were a lot of things that I did not know going into that. So even just to start off with 3 Omegas, very, very well done.
Great, good. Then on to the next.
On to the next. All right, so our first of 3 hunts is down. RJ, next up, hunt number 2. We're going to take a step back from Omega specifically, and we're going to do 3 common watch categories and see what your picks are here. We're going to impose a little structure on you as opposed to the first one. So for this, you have a $20,000 budget, not a bad amount to work with, and you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes to choose 3 watches. 3 watches that I know a lot of our fans are into. So we're going to have you choose a dress watch, a dive watch, and finally a chronograph.
Okay.
Feel up for it?
A dress watch, a dive watch, and a chronograph. And I have 20K and 5 minutes.
20K, 5 minutes, 3 watches. Let's do it.
I would say I would try to find a dress watch for around $10,000. That leaves me $10,000 for a chronograph and a dive watch, right? So let me start with a dress watch first. So I go to my laptop. I want to have a dress watch with as minimal stuff on there as possible. So even I don't even want a date, and perhaps not even a second hand. It needs to be very clean, gold, and I don't need to wear it with with a polo shirt or a t-shirt whatsoever. It's really a dress watch. So that leaves me like Calatrava, for example. Oh, typo. Calatrava. But I can also imagine that 10K would be a little bit difficult for Calatrava. At least one that you can wear basically. I also want to have like a decent size. I have a 19 centimeter wrist, so anything like 35 or less or 36 or less is a bit tricky. Okay, let me go with a different brand. Let me go Breguet. Because if there's one brand that is a bit underrated, I would say, compared to Patek or Lange, it's Breguet. And I really like the manufacture there. I visited them twice, and it's very impressive what they do. I think I will go with something like this, Classique Ultra Slim. This is the basic model with a beautiful dial that is made by hand. So they use these turning machines to get this motif, this guilloche. And beautiful Breguet hands in blue, and it has a beautiful automatic movement with a decentralized rotor. But it's a little bit above my budget, so what I will do is I will look up see if I can find something on this reference 5157. Oh, it's also in white gold, but I want yellow gold. I need to be a baller. So let me see, and here is one for...
And this is a 38 millimeter model as well, so this will work for larger wrists like yours.
Yeah. So it's it's 38, I think. Let me click one here. This is a pre-owned one, but with box and papers, and it's 38 millimeters, you're right. Yeah, beautiful. Really beautiful. I will add this to my notepad because I only have 5 minutes. So then I will quickly go to the Chronograph, and then you might think, oh, this guy is going for Omega Speedmaster, but I will not, because this Classique brought me to the idea of doing something Breguet here. They also have this Aeronaval, which I like because it doesn't have a date. And it's also quite an overlooked watch, I would say. And you can find them relatively, well, cheap is not the right word for a 5K watch, but I think it's a very interesting watch for that amount of money. It is an automatic watch. I think it's also 39 millimeters. Beautiful strap on this one, by the way. It has a bit of this Santoni patina looking strap. I think it's just old, but it looks nice. This is referenced 3800, so it is 39 or 39.5 millimeters. Beautiful automatic movement. And the funny thing I find about this watch is that all the hands on this watch have a different shape. And that I like about this watch. It is in used condition, as the description says. Perhaps we can find a nicer one in a little bit better condition. So here for 1K more, I will go with this one. Strap is perhaps a bit less nice, but the watch is in very nice condition. Might have been serviced or whatsoever. I don't know, but it's in very good condition. I will go with the Breguet Type 20 Aeronaval Flyback Chronograph. I have something left for a dive watch. Now I'm going to put back an Omega in the game. I will go with an Omega Diver. Because I think the budget allows this. And I will make it a Chronograph because I'm a Chronograph guy.
All right, so doing a diver and a Chronograph for under 4,000.
Yeah, because the nice thing about this is that it is one of these watches that it appears that you need to unscrew the pushes first, but it's not. Actually, the Seamaster 300 Chronograph, you can use the Chronograph underwater. last year or the year before they introduced this one here, which is in titanium, Sedna gold and tantalum. And tantalum is a very interesting material. It has this bluish hue and it's quite heavy, so the titanium compensates a bit for that. But it's based on one that was done in 1993. It's the, yeah, I'm an Omega fan, so I know these references relatively by heart. And here it is, and it fits the budget, I think, perfectly. This is a 1994 Seamaster 300.
And you have $4,000 to work with for this last one.
4,000, then I need to find a crappy one, or I need to make a decision in not to go with the gold. Perhaps we had enough gold for today. We had enough, oh, look at this. Okay, then what I will do is I want it to be complete with box and papers. And that will add something to the price. And I don't need to do it all, but I think this would be a nice one. Original box, original papers. I will go with this one here, 3.5K. So it leaves me $500 to spend on cookies and candy.
You could take yourself out to a nice dinner with all three of your watches.
Exactly. So this one basically has the same features as the one in tantalum and rose gold and titanium, but it's in steel, so it's quite a heavy watch. But I think it's a lot of bang for the buck that you get. This watch has a Valjoux 70-70-50 based movement. Omega modified it a little bit, and 300 meters water resistance. And you can use the pushers underwater. So that's my chronograph, my diver. The chronograph is the Aero Naval flyback, and the dress watch is the Breguet Classic.
Very good, very good. A lot of good variety here. I did not expect you to go Breguet or even Breguet again. So it's cool to see that. I think the Type 20 is a very cool watch. It's a great size at even under 40 millimeters for a chronograph. And then we even have two chronographs and two Breguets here. So even a little bit of overlap just for, some unexpectedness. We got an Omega in, which is always good to see.
Yeah, I think for 4K you can also perfectly buy into the Diver 300M, one of the previous versions. And but I thought the chronograph is a nice variation on the 300M Diver. Yeah, perfect, good.
Good, and that wraps up hunt number 2. We have one left before we wrap up today. I want to touch on the subject of Genta watches. Now, a lot of us know about inaccessible Genta watches, namely the Nautilus and Royal Oak.
Yep.
Those I would not deem as accessible, but there are others that I want you to point out that were designed by Genta that are overlooked and even relatively underpriced, let's say. So with that, take it away. 5 minutes, no particular budget, but you got to do 3 watches that are not stratospheric in price.
Okay, well that's still going to be a little bit difficult because I think Genta has become a buzzword. I used to have some Royal Oaks in my collection. I remember buying my first one for 5K in 2006 or 7, a 15300, and later on I bought for 7.5K a 15202, which is the jumbo, one of the most sought after Royal Oaks these days. I don't have them anymore because I stopped caring a bit about them, and I think they are way overpriced. But there are still some pretty good Genta alternatives out there. In the 80s he did the Cartier Pasha, and he also had his own brand where he did the Jeffica. And the Jeffica is interesting because the Jeffica is also one of the first bronze watches. So I will go to my laptop and look up the Gérald Genta Jeffica. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but I don't think there are many of them. So here's one. Price-wise, they're relatively equal. So it is the Gérald Genta Jeffica Bi-Retro Safari, which is bronze and titanium. And this was one of the first, or even the first watch in bronze. So it has this bronze mid case. Well, pictures are a bit small. And the rest is titanium. It has a very interesting bi-retro complication. So you'll see the big hour hand there, and you'll see the date retrograde, and you will see the the hours are jump and the minutes are retro. Beautiful watch. If I am not mistaken, this movement was Gérald Perregaux. I think Gérald Genta used that more often. Beautiful watch, 10K. I will keep it short, add it to my box. Okay, another watch. What I find interesting, there's a long story to it. I will keep it very short. Gérald Genta did also some Disney watches, and I really like it. And they did one in quartz, but I really like the one with a racing Mickey. It's not cheap, I will give you that, but I like it. It's very funny. I think you don't buy this as your first watch or only watch. This is for the person who has his special or specific watches, and then you want something out of the box. And I think this watch is really something cool. I will not add it. I will keep it with the Jeffica. It's more or less the same. Let me look at the IWC Ingenieur SL. Those prices also went quite a bit up, but still half of the price or less than Nautilus, you could say. So this for me is really nice, and I will add it nevertheless. Beautiful. And so it's there, it's accessible. It doesn't have much to do with the price, I guess. It's just the fact that you can buy one. IWC did some kind of re-edition in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, the 3227. I had one at some point, and it's not designed by Genta, but it's based on, and I think it's really cool. So I will not add this because it was not designed by Genta, but just so you know, there's still stuff out there that is a good alternative to the original Ingenieur or the Nautilus or Royal Oak. Good, then as I said, Cartier Pasha. I'm not a super fan of Cartier Pasha. It's an 80s watch, so some people think it's much older, but I think it's from 85 or 86 that Cartier introduced this. It was designed by Genta, and one of my first managers, when I still had a job, I worked for this consultancy company, and the managing partner, he had this Cartier Pasha watch. I didn't know about the Genta connection back then, but I was quite intrigued by his watch. And the watch had a power reserve indicator, and I don't see that as an option here. So I will just type it. Power reserve. I need to take time into account, and here you go. With a GMT and a power reserve. This one looks nice. A 38mm Genta watch with a cabochon crown, with a little lock. It has the power reserve there, 50 hours, 50 something hours. It has a GMT day-night indicator at 12 o'clock, a date at 4:30 with a little cyclops under the crystal, and a bracelet. Comes with box. Cool watch. If I am not mistaken, again, this was based on a Gérald Perregaux movement, and I will add it to my notepad. So I have 3 Genta watches in my box, and I hope I kept it within 5 minutes without being too concise or perhaps too boring.
So 3 watches here. We do have 3, I would say, distinctly different price points. The Cartier Pasha is very overlooked. It's not a lot of people's flavor of watches, I will say. And for something very unique, you have the Gérald Genta brand proper, not only with a jumping hour, not only with a two-tone bronze and titanium case, but also a bi-retrograde dial and movement there. And so very unique. And then You went tried and true with the IWC engineer. There are, of course, other Genta, inspired Genta DNA engineers you could get but for the real deal design by Double G himself, we're going with a more prestige model for the engineer. Definitely not to the price of a Nautilus or even the price of a Royal Oak.
Exactly. So, and I also believe that this model is a little bit overlooked. It also has a different movement, I think. So it's not this ultra thin movement that was done by Gégé Lecoultre for AP and for Patek. Patek switched to their own movement, the 324, later on with the Nautilus. AP kept that movement. Vacheron also used that movement for their overseas, or 222, which was actually designed by High-Sec, not by Genta. But this is one of the original Gentas, overlooked, and I still think if this is the price, let's say between 30 and 40K, I think the ceiling is not in sight yet. The Pasha is a bit of a overlooked watch indeed. Not everyone likes it, but also not everyone has to like it. Sometimes that's also a good thing, I would say, because otherwise the watch landscape gets very boring. If you open up your Instagram feed, you will always see the same Rolexes, Tudors, Omega Speedmasters. I'm also dabbled to that, and so on. So it's nice to see sometimes some different stuff, and I think this Pasha is different stuff, just like the Gérald Genta Jeffica Bi-Retro in bronze and titanium. Very cool watch.
Very good. So keeping it accessible as far as price in most cases and in accessibility, and keeping it, which I think is very important, to watches that you, like you said, wouldn't normally see in your social media feed, I think is very important.
Yeah.
As more collectors come into the fold, it's nice to add some variety to what we see every day.
Be an individual, man.
Yeah, be individual, man. Well said.
Yeah.
All right, RJ, we have gone through 3 hunts, through Omega specifically, through dress watches, chronographs, dive watches, and through affordable Gérald Genta watches. Let's hear some quick thoughts on this. What do you feel like you accomplished? Any favorites here? Take it away.
Well, I think affordable is a bit difficult with Genta these days, and I think it's more accessible. I would say I did nice. Perhaps the Ingenieur 1832. I would not feel comfortable spending 40K today on such a watch, but I missed the boat more often in the past, so that doesn't mean anything. Perhaps I would go for the 3227 that IWC introduced in 2005 and then discontinued a couple of years later again. I think they got rid of the entire Ingenieur collection in that style. I think today's Ingenieur looks quite different. But for the rest, I'm pretty content. The Cartier Pasha is not per definition my own watch. That's something I would wear, but I think it's something cool that you can wear once in a while. That is nice. It's like a talking piece, basically. The Gérald Genta, the Jeffica Bi-Retro Safari is beautiful. I would not mind wearing that on my wrist. Then for the 3 watches under 20K US dollars, I think the Diver is a good choice. Perhaps I could change that one for a non-chronograph, perhaps for one with the normal 300M from the 90s or early 2000s. They did one with a black bezel and white dial and a Speedmaster style bracelet, so not the typical blue Bond version, but a slightly different one. So that would be an option. And the Breguet Aeronaval flyback chronograph, I'm pretty happy with that. So it's either that or the Zenith flyback, the rainbow one, El Primero, because the El Primero movement is something I really would like to have. I don't have one in my collection yet. On the other hand, I also don't have a Type 20 watch yet, and I think this is really the one to have. The big dress watch for me is beautiful. There's the Lange 1815, there's the Patek Calatrava. Audemars Piguet also made some nice round dress watches in the past. I found those a little bit boring. The Vacheron has some nice patrimony watches, but Breguet for me is a brand with quite some history, if not the history when it comes to watches. And I like the fact that it only has 2 hands and that it's not a boring watch, despite that it's a flat watch, round watch, 2 hands, and it's not boring because of the coin case and the beautiful machined dial, the guilloche dial. Then for the Omegas, which is well, almost home turf, you could say, for Fratello. The Speedmaster, this is not the one I have from Tokyo 2020. Perhaps that's also the reason I picked it, because I have the Rising Sun. I like it a lot, but this green bezel one is perhaps even more wild than the Rising Sun one. And then the Globemaster. I have a Globemaster, the gold one. I really, really love it. It's also an expensive watch. If I would not be that comfortable spending that much, I would definitely go for this one on the leather strap, so the gold steel model leather strap. There's also one with yellow gold and steel with the white dial, with I think the blue and the rose gold. The same for blue and bronze, so yeah, it just looks good. So I would definitely go for this one. And yeah, the Constellation pipe pen from the 60s. As I said at the very introduction, I collect not only Speedmasters but also Constellations, and yeah, these are beautiful watches. They're also small, because I said with the dress watches it doesn't need to be too small. I have to add there that I collect these Constellations, but I hardly wear them. I just enjoy looking at them, and yeah, wearing them to me is sometimes a bit awkward because they're relatively small. When I have a dress shirt on or a suit, then those are the times that I pick a Constellation for my collection, because then it's not so much of an issue, I would say. But this pipe pen Constellation is also funny because it's a Genta design, and it has a beautiful caliber 551 movement. Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with this selection. I think with the Speedmaster we could go all sorts of ways, because they made a lot of special and limited editions. And for the rest, yeah, I'm pretty content.
Good. Very well done, RJ. I think you have a lot of variety here. There were, I'm sure, people who were trying to predict every move you were going to make, but I think you threw a lot of turns, twists and turns in there. So very cool surprises.
Perhaps, yeah.
A lot of cool ones that I don't think, I mean, even as someone who looks at watches on the internet all day, a lot of watches that I've never even seen before. So congrats to you. RJ, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you. We'll be back with more videos on Chrono 24. In the meantime, enjoy your watches.
Bye-bye.